Nesra, Ideas and Ideals. Many ideas are phoned in or emailed or mailed to presidents and kings and queens and representatives, but doing so doesn't make them a law. National Economic Security and Recovery Act was originally authored by Harvey Francis Barnard, a Louisiana State University systems philosophy graduate, an engineering consultant, and a teacher, who printed 1,000 copies of it as this title: Draining the Swamp, Monetary and Fiscal Policy Reform, 1996. That's how old this is. It was written up in black and white by this person, who eventually set up a website, arguing with the original author of it when he says it wasn't assigned a tracking number, it was never enacted or even discussed on the floor because everyone in Congress ignored it. He sent them copies of it. It was never introduced to Congress, never passed by Congress, and it wasn't discussed by them. And it doesn't require that they have literally a year's worth of private, hidden sessions to discuss it. That's a little bit of an ask, because this is what it asked for. Creating a more stable, zero inflation economy by doing all of the following things. Replacing income tax with only a national sales tax, which has been discussed before. Abolishing compound interest on secured loans, and returning to a bimetallic currency. He public domain self-published this stuff in the year 2000, and later as a book in 2005 called Draining the Swamp, The Nesra Story, Monetary and Fiscal Policy Reform. An add-on title. You can read this. And by 2005, he also repeated that it did not go through because they ignored it. So he was suggesting it to people. He wanted people to suggest this. Talk to your representatives and get this put through. Harvey Francis Barnard denied that it had ever been assigned a tracking number or enacted, because obviously, if he had any progress on it, he would have told you. This was his idea. And again, all it talked about was doing a bunch of things that a lot of people agree would work. This wouldn't be something that would require some bizarre, crazy, confusing, nonsensical conspiracy theory to explain why it didn't go through. This is the simple answer. Politicians ignore any good idea. This doesn't require a conspiracy theory, but it involves all of them. Maybe this would be a good idea. Would that create a zero inflation economy, a zero inflation rate economy, a much more stable one? I don't know, maybe. But none of them ever discussed this at all, except when asked about it years later. Did you ever hear of this? Most of them said no. Some of them said, yeah, I heard about it. Now it's turned into a conspiracy theory on the internet. It was originally an idea that isn't that bad. It might work. Any system that works, works. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. If the chunks fit together and it works, it's great. What we have right now is a kind of clumpy mess up. Maybe this would be better. However, a Ramthan Enlightenment School Dove of Oneness person whose real name is Shani Candace Goodwin lied about all of this. She copyright renamed it to National Economic Security and Reformation Act, so she could claim copyright at the time and sue people, which doesn't work, by the way, because it's a derivative work. She also said it would cancel all personal debts, which doesn't make any sense because that's not what he wanted. Abolish the IRS, but then how would you collect sales tax? Declare world peace, which is not something the U.S. government can actually do. Require new presidential and congressional elections. Would require an act of Congress, and that's not something that can be made hidden because you would eventually have to make it public. And that Nesra groups exist throughout several nations, but this is only applying to the United States. The United States doesn't make world laws. And that a secret congressional session had passed it in March of 2000, and it was signed by Bill Clinton, who would have immediately gone around crowing about it because this would be the way to save the economy, because the economy was kind of hosed at the time, maybe. And then to top this all off, in order to explain away the obvious objections I have to claim this was ever a law, ever a secret law, that there was ever a necessity for it to be a secret law, the thought-terminating cliche is 9/11 happened because the terrorists wanted to stop it, or Obama, or Bush, or gray aliens. I'm not kidding. She went that crazy. And there are people who have given her millions of dollars over the years because she keeps telling them, Just keep help funding me and we'll get this message out. Even paying a lot of money. One person paid a lot of money to put up billboards saying Nesra now and let it pass and admit to it and disclosure. Harvey Francis Bernard in 2005, just before he died, probably while he was dying, was made aware of her behavior and said she did this as a disinformation campaign and that she was full of shit. So the Ramtha Enlightenment, totally peaceful person said, oh, he's been gotten to by the CIA. A law that isn't disclosed publicly is almost, but not entirely, unenforceable. It is, in effect, unenforceable because you don't inform people that a law has existed. A law made in the United States cannot declare world peace and do most of the other crap she stuck on top. She did that on purpose to weed out anybody who might question her, especially the person who authored it, who is still alive, and she may not have been aware that he was alive. At one post, I saw the story where she had posted, stupidly, that they killed him. And he responded, I'm not dead yet. I just put out a book. She did this during a period of time that somebody was doing the Omega Trust meme, and during the time he had posted this as a book with a different name. So she just avoided a copyright violation by coming up with her own bullshit version of it that was so fantastical as to be easily considered a derivative work, but not a violation of copyright at the time. And then when the main author said, that's not what happened, she just said, did a hand wave, and that's it. That's the Nesra story. That's the real one. But all you did was link to Wikipedia. Wikipedia at the bottom links to all their sources, but the thing is, I've done this video a couple of times now, a couple of channels ago. So here's the challenge. Find any other rule by the United States government's Congress, that's the claim here, by this Ramtha head, that any of them, that was a secret session of Congress that enacted a rule and was signed by a president in secret that was divulged later. There are examples. It's mostly when you have the president or the War Department, this is how old it is, where they show up and say, we need you to hear this argument of what we want to do, but we can't let it be visible, but we still need to get your approval and make it a secret rule. It's under a secret session where they normally would be hearing super secret data but have to be trusted with it. This would be an example of them passing a rule and saying, if it ever comes out, we'll admit we passed it, and the president signed it, but it's signed in secret. There's an actual couple of examples of that. That's an extreme circumstance where the secrecy about it is more important. And guess what happens if the secrecy is blown away? Everybody who was in that building, March of 2000, is listed on a roster of people who were in the room. Last time I checked on it, this Ramtha head picked a day when there wasn't a session open, which means visibly there were people who were in the building walking around on the floor when it was not in session, so it couldn't have been. It was done in the basement. So, not only is it been found out, they won't acknowledge it. Because President Bush was willing to kill everybody in a bunch of buildings to destroy a database at the base of the building, because in the basement, or the second floor, of one of the Twin Towers, there was a list of people who were going to benefit. The person who authored it said it never even got to the floor, that most of the people didn't know about it. It was considered junk mail and tossed, which is kind of sad. There's still copies out there. He put it up on the net. He put it up for free. When someone goes out of their way to document everything about what they're doing, and then you pop along in 2005 to capitalize on the book, using the newly created internet-based sales, and create your own fan fiction that drives the author up the walls right before his death, that proves that Shanini Candace Goodwin, probably not a real name, Dove of Oneness, Ramtha Enlightenment School graduate of stupidity and lies. Because you lied about somebody and they said so. I'm just repeating his statement. That proves that this person's a cult leader wannabe who got away with shit, just like all the others. Unless you're referring to the original work and explaining how it could have been implemented at all, or how it could have been passed at all, we can't talk. We're not going to talk about Dove of Oneness, sweet bird of truthiness here. We're going to talk about the original author, And, okay, March 2000. Who was on the roster of people who were in Congress? Okay, what days were they open? Don't pick a day they weren't open. Find the roster. Secret sessions like that signed by a president would have to be that would include the entire government, including other people, knowing that it happened, keeping it secret for a very short period of time preferably, but as long as it's needed, I guess. And once it's outed, there's no reason to be quiet about it. Well, it's an open secret. Yeah, we passed this. Or they could have said, we debated it on the floor. This is not something that would be considered secret. Again, I'm going to repeat the assertion of the author that is claimed to have become a law, not what this other bullshitter said. He said, in Draining the Swamp, the Nesra Story, Monetary and Fiscal Policy Reform, the final version, that this would cause a stable 0% inflation economy, or very near that, by replacing income tax with national sales tax, which is something a lot of people have thought of doing. In fact, it's not a bad idea necessarily. Abolishing compound interest on secured loans and making them flat, I'm assuming. Because if it's a secured loan, maybe you shouldn't have compound interest. Returning to a bimetallic currency standard. None of these things would require secrecy. None of them. Why would you include that? He also stated flat out, before this lady showed up, that it wasn't actually debated, given a tracking number, or enacted, or passed into law by Congress, secret or otherwise. He said that before she came along. He said that they just ignored it. Congress ignores shit all the time. They ignore their own records. They ignore their own work. They just act like last Tuesday didn't happen. But somehow that's not possible. But some random person who literally made a living telling you what you wanted to hear has to be right. And you want to keep giving her money. Because she said it would cancel personal debts, which would cause a massive problem financially for all the companies that loaned. All the banks would stop loaning because they know you would just cancel the debts and not let them collect, so they wouldn't give out loans because they're not going to get any money back. On the other hand, you could cancel any debt where a person has, in effect, paid the principal back plus equivalent interest for flat interest so that they don't gain usury interest. That would be acceptable. Her other claim was it would abolish the IRS, which is not really usable because then you can't really do sales tax either. But Internal Revenue Service would still be needed, and there's no reason to do that. Require new presidential and congressional elections. We do them every 2 years for one and 4 years for the other already, so why would we need new ones? Does this mean make new types? That would be something you wouldn't make secret. How could you make a secret method for us to vote? Why would you bother? Claiming these groups exist throughout the world, trying to collect on a law passed in one country. Okay, that means Iran gets to determine what your religion is. No? Then that doesn't fucking make any sense. Declaring world peace doesn't fucking even work. But yes, New Age spiritual, super spirituals, UFO believers will believe this somehow. And then she started piling on even more crazy shit. Claiming a secret congressional session passed something on a specific month. Not the day. I'll find out what day it was claimed. And it was signed by Bill Clinton. Requires that it have something about it that needs to be kept secret, number one. And number two, now that the information's out, that it would be worthwhile to keep it secret. And number three, if they decided later to not implement it or to unimplement it, that just means the law was declared invalid anyway. If you believe in Nesra, you are by definition trying to be stupid. And yes, people have created completely unrelated stories later and labeled it the same way. I just wanted to find the old version of it to keep us a little grounded. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And yeah, this man, while he was probably dying that year, got to hear about somebody twisting up his really cool idea of how to try to fix the government and the economy. Bye.